Scene 4: the houses of Manaheim. The campus glistened under the morning light as Tira and Addie walked. The crisp autumn air, carrying the scent of wood smoke, mingled with the damp, earthy undertone from the nearby swamp. Addie's pace was lively, her words a cheerful stream that Tira had to work to keep up with, both physically and mentally. I mean, Tira, just imagine trying to study while a phoenix flies by your window. How do they expect us to focus with all these distractions? Addie asked, half dancing and spinning around as she spoke, somehow managing not to trip on the uneven cobblestones beneath them. Tira chuckled, her gaze sweeping across the bustling quad where most students moved confidently in clusters or pairs. Many wore shades of blue and white, the colors of the azure bears, and the sheer number of them filled the space, their familiar camaraderie lending a sense of unity whether they were athletic or academic, or anywhere in between. A few of them carried books or sported scarves against the morning chill, the light fabric wrapped snugly around their necks as they laughed in comfortable harmony. Yep, the bears, Addie noted, catching Tira's gaze. Friendly, I'll give them that, but they're also, let's just say they're very into the rules and what others think about them. I mean, don't get me wrong, every school needs a few teachers' pets. It's just that not everyone is a bear, you know. Tira nodded thoughtfully. She had read about the azure bears and their emphasis on reliability and community. They're the school's backbone, she mused, the ones who bring order and stability. Part of her respected that she could relate to their dedication and the comfort of structure. But their collective focus reminded her of a hive mindset, and she wondered if she'd feel out of place, much like she had in the orphanage. She considered herself reliable, and community sounded nice in theory, but she kept circling back to her instinct to follow her own path. You don't think you'd fit among them? Max's voice slipped into her thoughts, gentle but curious. Not really, Tira replied inwardly, glancing at the bears again as they passed. I mean, they're fine, but they follow the trends, and I don't think I could do that so easily. She paused, trying to untangle her own reluctance. There's more than one way to find community, I think. True, Max murmured, leaving her to her reflections as Addie continued talking, her words only quieting as they neared a small group of students wearing crimson and black. Their presence was unmistakable, crimson tigers, confident in their silence as they observed those passing by with a collected ease. Addie lowered her voice as they passed, her tone more curious than critical. The tigers there, well, the best way I can put it is, it's like a private club. I heard it's really tough to get in, and they like it that way. They're under a lot of pressure, though, constant high standards. Not sure I could handle that. She paused, eyes glinting as she leaned in closer. Professor Roslin, their house leader, punishes cheaters by turning them into toads. Not because they cheated, mind you, but because they didn't get away with it. She chuckled. It's all about being the best at all costs with them, as long as you're clever enough not to get caught. Tira couldn't help watching the tigers, noticing the way they moved with such control and certainty. They intrigued her, partly because their high standards struck a chord with her, but she couldn't help wondering if she'd measure up. The question lingered, would she ever be good enough for a place like that? But at the same time, part of her knew she wasn't fully ready to answer it. You're staring, Max remarked with a hint of amusement. Curiosity? I don't know. Maybe I just wonder if I'd measure up, not if I'd fit in, she thought, letting herself linger on the question as Max gently probed her. But I don't want to know yet, Max, not yet. Curiosity can be a tricky thing, Tira, he replied with a quiet understanding, and he let her be. Addie's voice cut through her thoughts, pulling her back to the present. Hey, Tira, are you listening? Tira blinked, managing a faint smile. You were talking about the verdant deer, right? She straightened, letting Addie's enthusiastic description settle in her mind. You were saying they're known as misfits, the ones who think differently. But they care about meaningful things. Empathy, idealism, depth, and I guess people see them as a bit quirky for that. Addie looked at her with surprise, her gaze softening with a new level of respect. Wow, Tira, you're actually a really good listener. Like really good. I could talk forever and you'd just keep listening. Her smile turned a little bashful, as if she were recognizing for the first time how much she'd been talking. Tira nodded, letting Addie's approval settle over her, feeling both amused and slightly guarded. At the orphanage it was "don't speak unless spoken to," so listening came naturally. It allowed her to understand people without having to reveal much about herself. And with Addie, who seemed to fill any silence with her cheerful chatter, it was easy to slip into that role. In her mind Max gently nudged, his voice like a quiet observation. "You could share a little more. It's allowed, you know." "I don't mind listening, Max," she thought, feeling the weight of his suggestion but resisting it. "I don't want to act prematurely, or get too invested before I even know what house I'm in." "Maybe so, but she is your roommate," Max replied, though his tone was thoughtful. Choosing not to act is still a choice. They soon arrived at the entrance to the great hall that contained the auditorium, where the towering stone building cast a long shadow over the cobblestones, its ivy-draped walls looming in quiet anticipation. The arched windows glowed with soft morning light, and Tira felt a sudden tightening in her chest as she looked up at the imposing structure. Everything about this day, the sorting, the ceremony, the mystery of which house she'd be placed into, carried a weight she hadn't fully felt until this moment. Addie glanced at Tira, sensing her hesitation, and gave her a supportive smile. "Don't worry, mate. Whatever house you end up in, you're still a friend of mine. And if anyone can't see how great you are, well, they're just full of rotty beans." Tira felt a pang of surprise at the warmth in Addie's words. They'd only just met after all, but something about Addie's optimism was strangely comforting. It was both refreshing and slightly unnerving, like a promise she hadn't expected. Before she could respond, Addie flashed her a wink and bounded up the steps with boundless energy, her laughter echoing back to Tira. "Come on, slowpoke, we've got history to make," she called, taking 2 steps at a time. Tira took a steadying breath, feeling Max's silent presence by her side, steady and reassuring. "Perhaps you'll find you're more ready for this than you think," he murmured. With a small private smile, Tira followed Addie, climbing the steps to the great hall and feeling the weight of anticipation blend with the first hint of excitement.